Let's talk about creating software to interact with another software. All right, some of you out there might be VTubers or interested in becoming VTubers, and a lot of people use the same programs. And of course, you're just gonna have to follow their settings. What I'm gonna show you here specifically is the Magic Mirror. And out of all the options out there, personally, I like this one because you do have the option of being able to do tracking based off just a camera without buying extra equipment. You can also customize the keyboard like you're seeing there on the screen there, where I've got all these different faces down there for my buttons. Right down here. It's got a spot for the mouse. It's got an arcade stick, controller, a tablet for drawing, etc., as well as a presentation mode. So I think this is personally one of the best options as far as that stuff goes. However, what it does not have is the ability to change your model. Now, if you're gonna say maybe stream on Twitch, you might want to have this as a redeem, and you can't get it to work, or well, you might have it as a redeem, then you gotta tab back over the program, go into your load files here, come on in and pick one of your 15 slots, and that can become tiresome, especially if it's something that happens fairly frequently. So now, using what you learn here, you can either do what I've done, where I've got this converted as an app for my phone, and I could just press a button and it interacts perfectly fine. Or we can, you can, if you already have a Twitch connection with channel redeem set up, you can then incorporate this with that and make it automatic. See, so you do have some options in there, but either way, we're looking at interacting with a pre-existing software, and we're creating our own program to work with it. So in our case here, with this, and this is a completely free program that you can test with, and if you don't have any models, you can always download some. What we're going to do is open up the settings window, and what you're going to need is under files here at the bottom, you're going to enable automation support in order to make this happen, and that's going to, well, enable it and give you a default port number. You could always change this. If you do change it, remember to hit apply, and you need to, or the instructions will be on this page here. When you hit this button, it'll open up the page for it. Right, and that page is going to take you here. And if you scroll all the way down, you get to the automation section. So if we're looking at this, we can see we got to go to File, Automation, Enable. All right, we've done that. Reading through this real quick, we see we're working with the UDP messaging. Okay, so it's not going to be like a WebSocket connection or anything. Let's see, we're looking through, and we're going to be sending a JSON message for the data. And this is an example of the message that we're going to send. So we're going to send a command called load settings file, and another dictionary, I'll call it here, arguments, 3 of them: the index, load character true or false, and load non-character true or false. Alright, so that's all we're going to need. So let's go ahead and take a look at how to accomplish this. Alright, so let's go ahead and take a look, and you can see here I just have a control for my main scene, right? Just because there's no reason really not to. It's a GUI interface here, and I just have 2 buttons, one for send 1, one for send 2, and I'm basically using this to switch between my settings file 1 and settings file 2, right? And all I have is a button pressed signal being sent from each of them. Alright, now for the script itself, inside of my ready function, where I'm just going to have this send JSON message and pass in an argument. The one I want to load, by default here in my ready function, I'm going to load character 1. And we can see down on button press, we're just doing the same thing, send JSON message. And for button 1, I'm sending 1. For button 2, I'm sending index 2. All right, so that's perfectly fine. It works. Everything's great. Now for the actual messaging portion, I've gone ahead and created my function send JSON message. I've got an index as an integer for my first argument. Load character or load char, load car, whatever, is a Boolean default value of true, and load non-car as Boolean default of false. So I don't have to pass in those arguments. I can just give it the index that I need. And then we have a variable called JSON message, which is just the default of, based on our example that we saw on the webpage. So we have command, load settings file, args, and we have index being set as index, load character as load car, and load non-character as load non-car. Alright, so that's all information that we had. Now, we need to stringify that, so we're going to store that as a JSON text. So JSON.stringify. So we have a nice JSON a nice JSON field here. Then we're going to create a variable called buffer, and we're going to store that JSON text to UTF-8 buffer. And now this is where it's a little different, right? Because we're not using WebSockets, which you may have used in the past. We actually need to use, it said a UDP message. So we're going to create a variable called packet, and we're going to do a packet peer UDP and create a new one. And now we need to go ahead and connect to our host. So packet.connect to host. And this is where you're going to pass in your IP address and your port that you had. Remember, if you had the default there that was given to you, 56131. If you changed it, then you're going to have to update that and put your different port number in there that you're using. Now, if you're using this on the same machine that you're running this program, then you can just use the local host 127.0.0.1. If you're using this on a separate device, such as your phone, then you're going to have to connect to the IP address of the computer that is running the actual program. Right, then all we have to do is put packet and pass in our buffer. And that's basically going to send our JSON text, right? Our arguments here, our command. It's going to send that off to the server we're connecting to, and that'll be passed into or listened for by our program, and we can go ahead and close our packet. Now, if you really want to, you can go ahead and you could print it out. There's no harm. Doesn't really matter. It's just a personal thing if you wanted to. And really, that's it. So now when we hit the button 1 or button 2, we're going to enter into here. And we're passing in the argument of an index, let's say 2. Right. Then we're going to create our variable for the JSON message with all of our arguments and the command that we got to send. We're going to stringify, JSON stringify that dictionary. We're going to store it as a UTF-8 buffer. Create a new packet peer. Connect to the computer. Send that buffer. And close it out. And at the end of that, when we send that data, that's when the model change is actually going to happen. So if we were to run that, so again, I'm loading settings file number 2. Boop. And there we go. And loading settings file 1. Boop. There you go. And nothing happens if you were to, say, go out of bounds. Right? So if I say 100, because we only have 15 slots, so 100 is way out of bounds. And if we were to run that, and that's going to try to run immediately, nothing happens. So if it's out of bounds, we're not going to get an error. But it's just nothing's going to happen. Alright. So hopefully that gives you an idea there of how to go ahead and accomplish that. And maybe get you on the path of creating side applications that interact or connect with another pre-existing application that's out there.